Howdy and welcome back. I'm Thorian G. We're doing more number generator tells me what to do. Alright, so in the free to play category, we have the third one that we're going to choose from. And from the third category, we are going to play the 45th game. So, I'll be back, tell you what that game is, and then download it. Alrighty, so the 45th game we are playing out of the adventure category is Ballads at Midnight, or Ballads at Midnight. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, but I'll download it and see you in a little bit. Alright, Ballads at Midnight. Let's see what the hell we're getting into. Prelude to Dawn. My wrist itch. My stomach is churning and empty. My legs are sore. The swath of hemp fabric struck taut around my cheeks and tied in a knot behind my head is chafing against the corners of my mouth. There's a bitterness on my tongue. I idly wonder if it's a taste of regret. That's implied, maybe nothing. My two armored escorts right ahead of me, exchanging hushed words. And make a short, unhappy noise to contribute to the conversation. Group of dots. They ignore me. But are you sure? Really? Are you? Shouldn't we have stopped to make camp before sundown, sir? The younger guardsman is jittery and demanding, with a stooped posture that reminds me of a rat. His round face was marred by the pockmarks and worried lines. No need, we're making good time. The other guard, as old and large as a cavern wall, has a deep, crusty voice well suited to his frame. I once saw him struggle to fit through a door. The pockmarked guard glances towards the horizon line, gritting his teeth. But sir, enough. We will be rid of her today. Be rid of me, like being rid of some piss-stained rug? How rude. What did I ever do to warrant such objectification? Feeling vexed, I continue to groan and yowl against the hemp between my teeth. It's inarticulate and far from most graceful sound I've ever made, but I make it sound increasingly urgent. Noise and more noise. One of them pulls the reins of his horse, dismounts him with a dull, armored clatter, like a rattling dish cabinet. It's the younger one. Good. He approaches me, muttering swears as he reaches back to yank the gag from my head. What convict? What is it now? Let's see. Most people buy me a drink before they bring out the gag. You're all angry to hear me, lowbrow but very boneheads with a whole lot of you. Oh no, I'm going with this. Most people buy me a drink before they bring out the gag. Stop it. He hisses the words low under his breath. Through his ears glow a traitorous shade of tomato red. It wasn't funny the first time, and it won't be funny the next. There won't be a next time at the rate we're going. I can say it again pretty fast, I think. Gods, you really haven't learned your lesson. What's wrong with you? He almost sounds amazed, as if my hands were untied. I'd twirl my wrist and do a curtsy. So I said, I saddle up to him, reaching out to brush my knuckles near his waistband. What's wrong? I wager you know exactly what's wrong. I was under the impression we'd move past the ritualistic sacrifice as a civilization, you see. I thought we were better than all this. Yet here you knuckleheads are, dragging me through the woods to feed me to a godforsaken vampire. I stomp on a branch when I get close enough. The ensuing crack obscures the sound as I unsheath the dagger from his belt. I palm it under my sleeve in a quick motion, hoping my ruse goes unnoticed. The guard stumbles away from me. He draws his sword to keep me at bay, snarling. You keep away, you heretic. Don't come near me. I raised my bound wrists in front of my chest, widening my eyes to look appropriately frightened. And I still have his dagger. By the time he clambers back onto his horse, his older companion extends his arm and smacks the back of the young guardsman's head. Idiots. Now we have to listen to her belly aching for the rest of the journey. Do we? The younger guard rubs his head, sounding defensive. She's caused nothing but trouble. Why not slit her throat and be done with it? Let the wildlife take care of the remains. You got smacked again. The old guard hits him again. I'd find humor in the slapstick routine if they weren't discussing my imminent demise. Shush, boy, we'll carry Her Majesty's orders to the letter. You and I, no shortcuts. You know the severity of our laws. Underhand practice will cost you your damn hands. The pockmarked guard hunches further at the shoulders. His eyes dart around like he wants to argue, but he begrudgingly clamps his mouth shut. I, on the other hand, have a Dodge penchant for making my observations known, and I'm blessed with quick retorts. Or is it just a cost of the fingers if you're lucky, And notice our wise old man here is missing a digit or two. I raise my restrained palms, wiggling my fingers. They glow balefully at me. I've seen actual battlefields, Harlet. Do not liken me to your crooked, bar-brawling ilk. Conflict, heretic, and now harlot. Wonderful. I roll my eyes and wrinkle my nose at him. I'll bet anything that the old man is lying. Illiva hasn't waged any wars in the past half-century. Furthermore, he boasted to my jailers that he's been assigned to this post for the brunt of his service to the crown. But I know better than push my luck with him. He's more prone to violence than the other guardsmen. I used to lag behind at the start of our journey, defiant and stubborn. The old one never hesitated to yank the rope around my wrists, lurching me right into the barbels and sharp stones. Defying him, I learned, meant having scraped palms and knees at best. Our pace carefully slows when we cross over a mossy log and a series of thick, tangled roots. For the horse's sake, of course, rather than mine. Oh shit. I work my jaw in silence for a while, keeping a measured distance from them. My grip on the dagger is unwillingly and clumsy. Aiming towards my bond is trickier than I imagined. I flinch as the pointed tip jabs against my inner arm. But shoot the guards a whining smile when they turn to look at me. So, good old cursed forest, eh? Did you volunteer to escort prisoners through this blighted brush, or was it an inherited post? Father's father and such. The pockmarked guard scoffs and mimics my words under his breath. Nothing to fear in these old woods, lass. Not if you're properly armed. Nothing but bears and wolves. People steer clear because they fear what lies in wait beyond. Surely you know that much. The men don't deign to tell me how they were assigned to their roles. None of my business, I suppose. An overhead canopy of leaves parts, allowing passage of sunlight to heat my scalp and cheek. The journey has been long and exhausting, but not altogether difficult. I'd even consider it idyllic from its perpetual backdrop and birdsong and distant running water. Any sense of leisure sinks and coils at the pit of my stomach as I realize the birds have gone silent, and the sound of water has risen to a dull roar. Before us is a murky disk of water, blemished green with algae, miles long, miles wide, and harrowingly uncertain depth. A jagged, ostentatious estate, protruding from the ground like a sword through someone's back, looms across the water's expanse. Not the first decrepit castle I've seen in my travels, but perhaps it may be my last. They are really good at setting an environment. That's where we're staying then. Home sweet home. Shit, I've barely sorted through a quarter of my restraints. Even if I make a break for it now, they'd run me down on horseback. I tried it before, back when they marched me through the greater plains. They nearly trampled me into paste. Quiet down, you sorry lass. You may wish to take this time to consider your last words. That's not a bad idea. I could hit you with a rose zinger before we go. The Ogar groans, mumbling a bitter prayer. I barely have time to hide the dagger before he dismounts and shoves me with more force than necessary. He lowers me unceremoniously into the ramshackle little boat, leaving the pockmarked guard to deal with me while he tends to the horses. My breath catches when the remaining guard takes a seat opposite of me. His gawky movements nearly makes the boat capsize before we even left the shore. The boat cuts through algae like a knife. Over on dry land, the old guardsman takes a heavy seat in the grass as he watches the sun descend. It's more serene view than he deserves. I take a deep breath and open my mouth to shout. I'll call him a prune. Overgrown prune. The young guard bites back a chuckle and clears his throat. I suppose he's freer to find revelry now that we're a safe distance away. As I warily crane my neck around, I observe how the water completely surrounds the estate. That makes this a moat. But there curiously isn't a drawbridge in sight. At its northeast and westward edges, the moat connects to a river. Following one side would likely lead straight to the Riffian Ocean. It's quite lovely, really, to be surrounded by such a wealth of natural water. Shame I never learned how to swim. Suppose I cannot persuade you to ferry me over yonder, all the way around the estate on the other side of the shore. The guard elects not to reply. He won't even look at me now. Aside from the oars carving through the water, the remaining boat ride is hushed and nerve-wracking. I sit up straight and stock still, trying to keep my weight centered despite the stinging insects nipping at my neck and ankles. The sun turns red and dips closer to the horizon. It takes half an hour to reach the other side, if not longer. Beyond the lip of the water is a carved ledge with a pit of trenches surrounding the estate's perimeter. The guard wastes no time forcing me upright and pushing me off the side. I fall into a roll, barely cushioned by the impact of grassy mud. I myself back up with effort, ready to yell the first insult boiling at the tip of my tongue. To my surprise, the young guard is still up there, lingering at the edge. Missed me already? I quirk my head to the side and bat my eyelashes at him. His response is slow and deliberate. I won't even remember you by tomorrow. I hardly know you, convict, and you don't even know my name. Who needs names? We are two ships passing the night, you and I. But it's not too late to change that, We can still run off into the sunset together. Come on, help me up. The sun setting behind the guardsman. His features are cast unreadable shadow. His fingers twitch and tap at his side. He casts an uneasy glance over his shoulder before, finally, he grumbles and rummages through his overcoat. From it, he pulls out the neck of a familiar instrument and throws it onto the ground with me. I cry out as my lute lands in the mud, nearly falling onto my own shoulder as I reach and flail to catch it. You'll owe me your next life, convict. I hope this accursed thing provides you some comfort in your final moments. I glare up at him. Old guy made you nervous, didn't he? All that talk about cutting off hands for being underhandled? Shut up. I knew you were acting jumpy for a reason. I just knew it. You were gonna pawn off my poor little beauty here. But now you don't want to risk getting caught with it. Harlet. He spits at me before he hurries away. I listen for the sound of the boat sloshing into the water, and then the creak of oars shortly thereafter. Now, why is it that when people you don't know how else to argue with a woman... Oh, hold on. Now, why is it that when people don't know how else to argue with a woman, they must remark on how frequently she has sex? With effort, I dislodge a dagger from inside my sleeve. It's still unwieldy, but cutting myself loose is a little bit easier when I don't need to hide the blade from my captors. I pick up my loot, carefully wiping off the dirt and grime before I check and adjust its strings. I holster it across my back where it belongs. It's thankfully intact, but I'm not sure I can say the same about myself. I know I need to come up with a plan. I need to explore and get familiar with my surroundings. Seek out a hiding spot while there's still daylight. My entire body's aching. I won't get far if I push myself to move now. I'll check the inside of my clothes for the last of my possessions. Keep safe and hidden under the lining. I've never been more grateful to have learned invisible stitching. A handful of coins and my straw writing journal are all I have left. I had a hidden number of small blades in my person, but I was too reckless in my previous escape attempts. I kept getting caught, and they confiscated all my knives. This guardsman's dagger isn't too shabby, at least. I took the blade into my belt, careful not to poke myself. I'll be ready to use it when it's dark. The ledge I fell from casts a long shadow. I edge from it into the remaining light, and I concentrate on taking a deep breath, rejuvenating breaths. This creature of the night, I've heard it can change its very shape. If it pursues me in the form of some animal, I doubt I can outrun it for long. It's wise to save my strength so I can battle whatever form it takes. After all, I'm determined not to go down easily. Alright. Well, so far this is pretty good. I like the ambiance setting, I like the writing of it, even the art style kind of fits. But for now, I'm going to leave it off here. If you like this, let me know, and I'll continue with the rest of this game. If not, it'll probably die here. But I will have to give this game a bit more limelight. So, if you find my content enjoyable, you like this kind of stuff, you like seeing what I'm doing, how I'm doing this, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what's going on. I want to hear from y'all. Put me in a direction. I want to see what y'all want to do. I want to make this as involving as possible, and as much involvement as possible to really make this channel grow. I'm not going to know that till you talk to me. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see more of. And until next time, later.